Hi, and welcome to another session of the Clutter Corner. I'm super excited that you're joining me today. My name is Angela Brown, and for those of you that are just joining us and you're new here, I've been a professional house cleaner for the last 25 years in the field, and 32 years total. For the last 6.5 years, I've been training cleaning companies full-time all around the globe. And one of the things working with hundreds and hundreds of families that we've noticed, we didn't notice it, it actually kind of smacked us upside the head like we were standing still, is that lots of people have a lot of stuff, storage units and garages and attics and scary rooms and closets and areas of their home that have been overcome with stuff. So whether we like it or not, whether we admit it or not, whether we are pretending that we like it or not, all of us have a relationship with stuff. And it might be a healthy relationship with stuff, and it might be an unhealthy relationship with stuff. So today we're going to talk about something really fun, something near and dear to my heart. We're going to talk about, is this a bargain or a burden? And it is important that we are clear about which it is to us, because we're going to be spending a lot of time with stuff for the rest of our lives. Now, it would be really easy to say, I'm going to swear off all stuff. I'm going to go minimalistic. I'm going to get rid of everything. But that's not realistic, okay? That's not real life. That's not being honest with ourselves. And if we are honest with ourselves, we will be using stuff to fulfill our lives for the rest of our lives, okay? So we're going to have stuff, and that's okay, as long as we know how we feel about the stuff and how it fits into our lives. So I love that we're having this question today, and I want to share with you a couple of things that are from my own personal experience, okay? Before we jump into this, I do want to remind you guys, this is a YouTube channel, and I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm not a medical doctor. I can't cure your problems. I can help you change your relationship with stuff, okay? But I want you just to remember and let me remind you, this is a YouTube channel. And so if you need additional help, or you need additional therapy, or you need a guidance counselor or something to help you through this, there are a whole bunch of resources that are available to us today. So this is just a conversation based on my last 32 years being inside and out of people's homes every single day at a mass scale. Okay, these are my personal observations. I want to go all the way back to when I was young. Now, my parents had 19 kids. And what's really peculiar about the situation that I grew up in is we were not big fans of a lot of stuff. We lived in a small house for a good part of the years that I was growing up. And our limitations was a milk case. Okay, this is a plastic milk crate, and this was introduced. The plastic milk crates were they replaced the wooden milk crates back in 1960. Okay, I wasn't born until the 70s. But what's interesting about this particular milk crate, it is 13 inches this way and 13 inches this way, and it's 11 inches deep. Okay, it holds 4 gallons of milk. Now, my parents said everybody in the family gets their own milk crate. Whatever you can fit inside this milk crate, you can keep. And we're like, oh, that's so cool, right? Well, if you've got 19 kids, that's 19 milk crates. That's a lot of stuff. But the cool part about it is we had generic stuff for the family. Like we had generic clothes. We would wash our clothes and hang them up on the line. If you need a t-shirt, you just go grab a t-shirt. If you need a pair of socks, you grab a pair of socks out of the sock bin. And that did not count towards our milk crate. The milk crate was for special things like a curling iron, or I don't know, maybe I have a special toy or something. But I don't remember growing up being connected to any items at all. I mean, we had stuff that we used in our house, but I didn't have any mad connection to stuff like, oh, that's mine. I didn't really have anything that was mine until I moved away. And then I was like, oh, wait a second. There's a whole world of stuff I can buy now. And when I moved away because I had a job. So my question for you is, it goes just beyond the having stuff together. But my question for you is, how much stuff do you need? And this is a picture of the milk case, and that there are 12 gallons of milk in this milk case. This is how much it actually holds. And so how much stuff do you need? And it's a really great question, because we all need different amounts of stuff for different times of our lives and for different reasons, right? So this growing up was how much stuff I was able to keep, whatever would fit inside that container. Now, I know many of us are familiar with the container concept, and that's however much stuff you can fit in a certain area, that's how much stuff you get to have. Now, for most of us, the amount of stuff that we have fits inside our homes. And our home is the infinite container that holds everything. And it may go beyond that. We may get a storage unit. We may have an attic. We may have a shed out in the back. We may have other areas if we can't contain it to that one area. But there is a finite amount of space that everyone gets to have. Okay. So depending on how many places you have to store things, it does come to an end at some point. You're not cluttered by the whole world. You're not responsible for decluttering the whole world. You're only responsible for the areas that you claim. And growing up, it was a very small basket. Okay. I want to stop for a second and say hi to you guys. I just see that you guys are here and I'm super excited. My question early on was, everybody has a relationship with stuff, and is your relationship healthy? If yes, type in healthy. Fran Thompson says it wavers to unhealthy sometimes. And I love that answer, because sometimes we will pivot, and you will over the course of your life. I know, for example, when children are born, parents and families have a lot of stuff. They're given a lot of stuff, and it's cribs and strollers and clothes and toys and things like that. When people get animals for the first time, they tend to have an overwhelming amount of toys and a little dog house and a dog bed and a little dog stairs and all kinds of things that they normally don't have. So our life can change from being really healthy to being unhealthy, right? It changes. Melanie says, hi, Angela. Yes, bargains can become burdens. Hi, Melanie. I'm super glad that you're here today. This is so exciting to see you guys over and over again every week. Fran said, I stayed away from thrift stores since, and I'm guessing that's December. And I want to give you, you know what? Let's get you a happy bell. I have a happy bell right here. Here we go. This is for Fran for staying away from the thrift stores. I love thrift stores. They're so much fun. But that's a great habit to get into, is not going to them if you can help it. Glenda says somewhat healthy. Go Glenda. That's awesome. I'm super excited about that. Fran said it was December. Melanie says your house is a container. Yes, that's true. Your house is a container. That's absolutely true. And most people are limited by the house or the storage unit or the sheds or those things that they have. Okay. So based on how much space every family owns, that's how much space that they are required to clean and maintain and declutter. Right. Melanie said, yay, Fran, me too. So I'm guessing many of you have committed to not go to thrift stores. I am super happy about that. Here's a happy bell for staying away from the thrift stores. I know inside our Hoarding World group, we've been taking stuff to the thrift store and then like barricading ourselves and not going inside so that we're not tempted until we change our relationship with stuff. It's like being an alcoholic and then you go into a bar and you choose not to have a drink. For a period of time, we're just not going to the bar, right? We're saying, I'm tempted when I go inside because I always find great deals. So holding off on the stuff. All right. So when I moved away from home, I moved away everything that I had moving away fit inside a gym bag. And I hopped on an airplane. I flew all the way across the country and I started my life all over again as a nanny. Okay. Being the fourth oldest of 19 kids, I was an amazing babysitter. And that's what I knew how to do. And that was my first job away from home. So as I moved away, I moved into someone else's home. And they had this great big room that became my new container. And they're like, hey, this can become your room with your stuff. I was like, wow, this is a lot of space. I'm not sharing a room with all these sisters. How cool is that? And for the first time ever, I had my own space. I didn't have anything to put in it, but I had this huge room. Okay. Now, my question to you is, are you filling up rooms because you have the space? And are you okay with empty space? And if you're not, this is where a lot of people get in trouble when it comes to the shopping. They have the space and they say, whoa, this is looking pretty empty in here. I should fill this up. And without thinking about it, that's exactly what I did. Okay. I did not grow up in an environment that gave me a lot of stuff. So when I moved away, our house was full growing up, but it was because we had all these kids and all the stuff. Now I move into an empty space. And the first thing is, this is not my comfort zone. This is not my new normal. I must fill this space up. Right. So without even being aware of what was happening, my first inclination was earn money and then go shopping. Okay. So here I was in a strange place. I didn't know anyone. Everyone else that I knew were nannies. I got connected to the nanny network. And so all the nannies would go out at the end of every day. We didn't have any friends. And what did we have in common? We had in common that we were all single adults and that we all had children to take care of during the day. And we all moved from tiny places that were our parents' place that had all of our parents' stuff in it to rooms of our own, and there's nothing in it. So what did we do? We went shopping, and that became our new norm, and that was our social activity. We went shopping as a social activity and environment. And so I didn't know any better, and I didn't know what I didn't have. But I'd never been in an environment before where I didn't, like, I was being judged based on what I had. So like I said, when we grew up, we took clothes off the line, and it didn't matter whose t-shirt it was. A t-shirt is a t-shirt. Guys, girls, everybody can wear them. We all shared each other's clothes. We shared socks. We shared everything, right? Now I was living across the country on my own, and I had all my own stuff. And then as I looked around at the other nannies, I'm like, oh, something bad just happened. They're prettier than I am. I don't have the kind of stuff that they have. So I started looking at them to kind of guide me to what am I supposed to be wearing. And when we were off the clock and we weren't being nannies, because we wore pretty much something like what I'm wearing right now, just normal everyday clothes. But when we would go out, we would dress up. And I realized, well, I don't really have any dress up clothes. I need to go get some dress up clothes. So I went to buy some dress up clothes. And then they were, doing the fingernails. And I'm like, well, maybe I should go do the fingernails. And then they were doing the hair and getting colors and highlights in the hair. And so I did that too. And I started spending a lot of money to try to be like my other friends. And so when we would go out, we would shop and we would eat. And I went from 120 to 186 that first year. I put on a whole lot of weight. And then the clothes that I was buying didn't look as cute on me. So I had to go buy bigger clothes. And, it was this weird kind of growth exploration of like, what is my relationship with stuff? And I hadn't clarified it. I was completely unconscious about my relationship with stuff. And many people are in that same situation. They float from day to day and they're not clear about their stuff at all. So my question to you is, are you buying stuff because it's a social activity for you? And are you really clear about why you're spending the money you're spending? Now, many people will be accused of having too much stuff for other reasons. But one of the reasons, honest to goodness reason, that I had so much stuff is because lo and behold, it was just a social event. I could do just as well without the stuff. I'd gone my whole entire life without stuff. I didn't really know why I was buying stuff. I was just kind of buying it. And so there I was. I'm like, oh, I'm doing what everyone else is doing. And I did find myself in a situation where we would go shopping together and I didn't really want to buy anything. I didn't have anything to buy. There was nothing on my shopping list. But then I felt like weird and like socially inept if I didn't buy something. Has that ever happened? You go out with friends and then there's nothing to buy and you don't want to like walk away empty handed because they'll think you're cheap, something like that. So then I started buying weird things like, oh, I guess I'll buy a handbag today. I didn't need a handbag. I'm a nanny. Everywhere I go, I'm carrying a diaper bag. I didn't need a handbag, right? I'm going out with my friends. I already have a handbag. I don't need two. And so I was trying to buy things to fit in. And so that's a really weird reason to be buying stuff. But honest to goodness, that was my initiation into the world of stuff. Oh, and it gets better from here. I wish back in those days I had been conscientious of what was happening, because I would have made a whole bunch of different choices than I did. I've got a Facebook user here that says shopping really can really become a hobby, which is not good. I love flea markets, thrift stores, and yard sales. Now I'm gonna echo my love for these as well, because growing up in a family with so many kids, money was tight. And so anytime I could get a bargain, I was like, yes, wow, look what I just found. Steal of a deal. Let's get this, right? And usually it was really good stuff that I could have a reason to buy. Yes, let's buy that. I recently went to the thrift store. My parents were coming to town and my mother was too proud to travel with her little walker. It's got wheels on it and you can push it. And she was too proud to travel with that and thought she could make it all the way across the country to go see all of her kids without it. And I was like, wait a second, mom's coming to town. She's going to be on the road for another 2 or 3 weeks. Let me see if I can drop by the thrift store and find one. And when I went inside the thrift store, and this is just a couple months ago, I went inside the thrift store and there was a whole aisle of mobility devices. And they had these that fit over the toilets, and they had these that helped you up if you were sitting on a sofa. They had those that had the wheels on them. They had the raised toilet seats. They had things for the shower. There was a whole bunch of stuff. And I was able to get 5 or 6 items for under $20. And I'm in just this euphoria of like, look at me, I hit the jackpot. And I was really happy because my mother was only coming to stay with me for a weekend, but then she would have the things that she needed. And my sister came to pick her up, and she was going to go stay with my sister. And my sister didn't have any of that stuff either. So I sent all that stuff with my sister, so my sister would have it at her house to make my mother stay more comfortable. And my mother said, "Oh, let me pay you for all this stuff." We're like, "No, like we're going to send it back to the Goodwill when we're done after you've used it, or you're free to take it home, but we don't need it, and it was just for your stay here." So there, I'm not knocking the wonderfulness of thrift stores, but I do think there's a time and a place. And I think you have to shop with awareness if you're going to shop. When I went to the thrift store that day, I went with a very specific set of things I was looking for. And when I walked in, what I saw some really cool stuff for the office, like office storage shelves. And I picked one up like I was going to buy it. And I was like, wait a second, that's not on my list. And that's not why I came. And I made myself put it back. And then I was like, get out of the store and stop looking. You did not come for anything else other than what you just got. Get what you got and get out of the store. And I'm learning those disciplines now. Okay. So it's taken me a lifetime to do this, but it goes back. I mean, we're going back 30 years to when I unconsciously started spending crazy amounts. Fran said, I donated 15 cases of books to the library after my husband died. He was the book collector in our family. And I am so proud of you for this. Books are so hard to get rid of for me. I'm an avid book collector. So Fran, you're you're raking in the bells today with good news that you're sharing with us. So thank you. That's a huge inspiration. Julie says, good morning from California. Hey, Julie, it's good to see you. And it is morning there in California. Hi, and how are you? Sylvie says, Virginia SO8, I understand you. I love my books too. I love my books. I'm a huge book fan. Thrifting gets you good deals. Yes, it does. Almost every time, which is why we're not going in unless there's a specific need. Facebook user says, yes, for me and my friends, it's a social event. We go shopping all day. Then we go out to eat. My friend even got mad at me once and said, you're not even buying anything. I've had friends that did that too. And so therefore I kept shopping. And as I kept shopping, I realized, and this is the next thing that's really peculiar for me, and it's a true confession that I have to share with you. One of the things I was completely unaware of is money. And my question is, are you shopping to slick out? And what this means is I'd never had any money of my own. And so now here I am on my first job. I had a couple of jobs when I lived at home and the money went back to the family. But now I had my own money. I had my own job. And nobody ever told me what I was supposed to do with the money. Nobody ever trained me in money because we didn't have any. And so I'm not blaming my parents because we didn't have any money. But my issue was, and my issue to this day is, if you don't have a plan to do it, something to do with your money, are you just going to spend so that you can slick out and go from paycheck to paycheck? Now, this is a really weird, dumb, convoluted way of looking at life. But, let's go back to my teens, right? These are my late teens, and I didn't know any better. I thought, okay, I'm supposed to move away from home and I'm supposed to get a job. And then what? Nobody ever told me that you're going to be spending and you're going to be paying bills and spending money for the next 70 years of your life. Because if somebody would have told that to me and I understood that concept, I would have put the money into a bank account or an investment account or something, and I would have made the money work for me. But I didn't know that was the reality. I didn't know what was supposed to happen next. So I thought, oh, I earned this money. This is my money. I'm supposed to go out and spend it because next week, more money's coming in and I'm supposed to spend that, right? Wrong. That is not how money works. But that's what I did. I made sure that I slicked out every week. I earned money and then I went and I spent it every week. And then at the end of the week, there was no money left. And then I would start the next week all over again, right? And I was living with the family that I was living with. So I wasn't saving anything to go live on my own one day. The thought had never even crossed my mind. I did not know that's how life works. And so there I was in my late teens, and I'm slicking out every single week because I get paid at the end of every week, and then I go spend it every week. And then what happened was I started running out of money. I started spending more money than I was earning. And then I started getting creative because we are creative people, right? So I said to myself, wait a second, how much money do I need to earn? I need to go get a paper route. So I started getting a paper route so that I could deliver newspapers before my nanny shift started early in the day. That way I could earn paper route money and I could earn nanny money, and then I could go spend it by the end of the week. Still wasn't saving a dime. Didn't know that's how that worked. And so my question to you is, are you shopping so that you can slick out? Because paycheck to paycheck is your comfort zone. Now, I hate to say this, but there are a lot of people that I've worked with over the years. Nobody ever told them about money either. I'm not beating any of us up. But what I am doing is I'm raising a little white flag saying, hey, let's stop right here. Okay. Let's stop right here and ask ourselves the question, is our comfort zone paycheck to paycheck? And do we know that there's something beyond that? And if there is something beyond that, do we need to keep buying all the stuff that we're buying? At the time, remember, I was buying things I didn't need because it was a social event. I was trying to impress my friends that were sort of my friends. I was slicking out every week because I didn't know what I was supposed to do with the money. And I was building, without even realizing it, I was rebuilding the comfort zone of what I had growing up in a house that was a little house with lots of stuff in it because there were lots of people. Then I moved to another house that also had lots of room, but not lots of people and lots of space. My comfort zone was having everything full. So I started buying stuff just to fill up the room. And as the room got full, all of a sudden I was back in my comfort zone. Yay, everything was good again, right? I didn't understand I was creating unnecessary clutter for myself. And I was completely unaware of what was happening with the paycheck to paycheck thing. And so I want us to stop and say, are you slicking out, and are you buying things you need? And are you just buying things to be buying things? Because that's really a frightening game if that's the game that you're playing. And that's the game I was playing because I didn't know any better. So are you living to shop? Do you shop to live, or do you live to shop? Now, there was a particular time in my life, and I hate to admit this, but there was a particular time in my life where I loved to shop. I loved to shop. And why did I love to shop? Well, I'll tell you why. Because it brought all kinds of happiness to me. It's a whole bunch of stuff I never had. Now the things are mine. I'm not sharing them with any siblings. This is my stuff. I'm going out with friends, so it's a social activity. They're watching me buy things, which is like, check me out. I'm making a lot of money now because I can buy all this nice stuff. And that is when I discovered credit cards. No, don't do it. Don't do it. Somebody stop me. Nobody stopped me. But I started the credit card thing because I discovered I could buy bigger stuff and more stuff and nicer stuff on a credit card. And somehow I made a disconnection between the credit being a loan that I was going to have to pay off and my money. When they said you have $5,000 available to you, I'm like, $5,000? What can I buy with $5,000? Now, coming from the mentality of slicking out paycheck to paycheck, my eagerness sent me into this spin cycle where I went out and I spent all the $5,000 so I could slick out. Again, that was my comfort zone. That is what I knew, right? Back to my teenage years, somebody stop me, please. I just didn't know any better. And it wasn't that I had a bad upbringing, but it's that my parents did not use credit cards. We never had a surplus of cash. We were pretty self-sufficient. We grew up on a farm. We raised our own food. We were gardeners. We had our own livestock, chickens, eggs, that whole thing. We did pretty well for ourselves. And so moving out on our own, like I gotta buy my food now. I gotta buy my clothes. I gotta buy my stuff. There's nobody doing my laundry for me and hanging it up on the line just for me to wear. And now there was like this social thing, like I had to have a cool handbags and cool clothes and cool shoes and all that stuff. But that wasn't even true to my lifestyle, because the majority of my day I was hanging out in sweats and I was being a nanny and the kids were puking on me and, I was doing the mom thing. That was my reality. And then I had this alter ego in the evening where it's like, hey, I'm super cool and I wear fancy clothes and all this stuff. Is that true? Is that really true? Is that who I was? And the answer is no, that's not who I really was. Now I was going in credit card debt so that I could impress friends that were not paying my bills. Okay. My friends were not paying my bills. I was paying my bills. So I want to stop for a second and I want to say hi to Sylvie. She said it's a dopamine rush buying nice things for yourself, hence the term retail therapy. I'm guilty. Boy, was I guilty at this part of my life, right? And I think we've all been there, which is why I wanted to have this conversation with you today. Because if you're buying stuff for kicks and it's just retail therapy and it makes you feel good, yay, how much do you need, right? Patty says, as I sort through my excess to get rid of, it makes me sick to my stomach to think how much money I've wasted. I wish I had the money now. I'm going to echo that. I wish I had the money now. If I had have taken the money that I wasted on things I didn't need to impress people that were never going to pay my bills, I could have invested that either into real estate or I could have put it into stocks or bonds or something else. I could certainly have built my business a whole lot quicker. But now here I was approaching my 20s and I'm getting ready to leave being a nanny, ready to go out on my own. And I'd never saved any money at all. Sylvia says, you're so right. And Fran said, I spent at thrift stores so that I could invest, keep a tight budget. Fran, I just got to have you come on the show. You got to share with us your wisdom. This is spectacular. But here I was just in a bad situation that I myself created. Okay. As I look back, I'm 100% responsible for what happened to me because I was drifting aimlessly from day to day, not paying attention to actually the world around me and how I was spending money and my relationship with the stuff. Okay. I was completely unaware, and it doesn't let you off the hook. Being unaware does not let you off the hook with the bills. It does not let you off the hook with the clutter that you end up with, or the way that you have to deal with, again, moving forward through the rest of your life, dealing with how you shop and how you buy things and how you store things and save things and for what reasons. It doesn't change any of that. My question for you is, does shopping give you pride or shame? And back in the early days, I was buying really cool stuff. This is a fancy wristwatch. It's a rose gold wristwatch with a matching bracelet and a matching crusted diamond bracelet as well. Okay. So I was buying stuff, and a part of me was like, oh, I have arrived. I'm really fancy stuff now. Check it out. I have nice things. Okay. I have nice things, and I'm a nanny all during the day. Whenever am I going to wear the fancy bracelet, the diamond bracelet, the fancy watch, all that stuff? When am I going to wear that? Okay, in the evenings when I'm out to impress my fancy friends, right? That's the only answer I can come up with. But the reality is, during the day, if we're at the park, I'm not going to be wearing that kind of bracelet. I'm not going to be wearing that kind of watch. I'm going to be wearing like a triathlon watch that can get spit on. It can get wet if I'm washing dishes or I get hit by the hose or something like that while I'm chasing kids around. It's got to be a weatherproof, rock 'em, sock 'em, can't break, can't anything kind of wristwatch, right? Back in these days, we didn't use our phones for clocks. We actually had wristwatches. But the wristwatch that I wore the majority of the time was an Ironman triathlete watch that could go through any kind of weather, not a fancy jeweled watch. Okay, that was very unrealistic for my tastes. Now, the question is, does shopping give you pride or shame? When I was with my friends, the shopping gave me pride. Like, check it out. I'm pretty fancy. I've got one of those really nice wristwatches. But when I went home to see my family, it brought me shame. Because what I realized was, here's my family and they're on a really tight budget. I've gone out and spent way more than I probably should have ever spent on something frivolous that is just going to eke in their faces as like, hey, look at me, I'm all fancy and you guys are poor, right? That's the message that came across. And so when I would go home, I wouldn't wear my fancy watch. I was ashamed to wear my fancy watch, and I was ashamed for the fancy clothes that I had because I wanted to now fit in with the people I grew up with. So when I was with my friends, I was like super proud, like, hey, look at me now, I'm like you guys. And then when I would go home to my family, I was like, hey, look at me, I'm like you guys still. I don't have the fancy stuff. And so even though now I was in credit card debt, and even though I was overspending and I was buying things to impress my friends, it wasn't a bargain after all. It was becoming a burden. And I was doing this to myself. My relationship with stuff was I was trying to recreate the norm that I grew up in with everything full and no extra space. But I was also creating this new alter ego where I'm going out with friends and I'm trying to impress these people that who cares? They either like me or they don't, but I really wanted them to like me and I didn't have any close friends. And in the back of my unconscious mind, I think that if I was more like them, then they would accept me. And I think that's really what this boiled down to, is I was trying to get acceptance from other nannies in the nanny network. Okay. So that's kind of where that came from. And it's not a very good answer, but that's all I came up with. My next question is, are you using all the stuff that you buy? Now, this is a tough question for me because this is a Walmart. If you're like me, you probably love Walmart. I know I love Walmart. Oh my goodness, do I love Walmart? I discovered Walmart when I was a nanny, and there was one 40 miles away. 40 miles away. I would get in my car on the weekend and there were no other nannies around. Like they're shopping at Nordstrom's and Neiman Marcus and I'm going to Walmart, right? That was my comfort zone from my upbringing. We were frugal because we had to be. And now I'm like, whoa, I can find some really cool stuff at Walmart. I would drive 40 miles to Walmart. And I want to share this with you today. Today, there are 5 Walmarts within a 4-mile radius of the house I live in right now. There are 5 Walmarts. So if I want to go to Walmart, they are just all around me right now. I made a road trip. I got in the car. It was a special event. I'm going to go shopping at Walmart. I would make a list of all the things that I wanted to buy. And then I hoped that there would be some things that jumped out at me that I didn't even know about. And the first thing I would do when I get to the Walmart, I walk through those great big doors and I'm like a kid in a candy store, and the awe and the wonder. And I would dart right back to those clearance items. I would be looking for all kinds of stuff. Now, here's the reality. I was buying stuff off the clearance rack that I didn't need or want 5 minutes ago. And it's stuff maybe that it didn't quite fit me, but boy, was it on sale. I could make it fit me. I'm going to shrink into that. I'm going to buy that right now because it's cool. I'm going to shrink into that. And boy, am I going to look mighty fine in whatever is on that Walmart rack right now. I was buying stuff because it was on sale. Okay. We talk about the dopamine high. It was a dopamine high because all during the week, I'm dealing with thankless children that are like, give me, give me, give me. And you give and give and give until you're exhausted. And now I'm going out on the weekend and I'm doing something nice for myself. I'm going to buy myself some fun stuff. I'm going to reward myself, right? These are the things that we tell ourselves while we're going deeper and deeper and deeper in debt, buying stuff that we don't need, that we're not going to use, that we have to store. That's where it gets really interesting. Is it a bargain or is it a burden? Virginia says, I haven't read all of the books that I've bought. I haven't read all the books that I've bought either. I've read a majority of them and I really love books. But again, that's one of those things that we end up having. And then at some point we have to make a conscious decision on, do we want to get rid of them or what, right? We've got a Facebook user that says, my sister kept buying these party dresses because they were on sale. And I asked her, what parties are you going to? Which she doesn't go to parties. That's an interesting dilemma, but I think that's really true of a lot of people. Many of the homes that we've gone in year after year after year, we help people clear out their closets. And there's a lot of stuff in people's closets that they never use, ever. People that have like beach umbrellas. And we're like, whoa, when do you go to the beach? I've never been to the beach. Okay, why did you buy beach umbrellas? And they've got beach chairs and they have all the things that they see in those lovely pictures where people are sitting there and they're enjoying some time. What they're buying is a dream. One day I would like to go to the beach and I would like to sit under an umbrella and I would like to have this moment, right? So they're buying that kind of stuff and they have no intention of going to the beach. There's no way for them to get to a beach. There's no beach around. If they went to a beach, they would rent this stuff and they wouldn't cart it all the way across the country anyway, right? So there are a lot of things that are actually not even part of our lifestyles, and yet we're buying that illusion like the girl was with the party dresses. You buy the party dresses because the people in the party dresses look amazing. And you're like, I want to be like that. At an unconscious level, I want to be like that. I want to have the fancy dress. I want to be invited to parties. I want to be accepted. I saw somebody on Instagram have a really nice party that they went to because they had a dress like this. If at the last minute I get invited to a party, I want to make sure I have the right party dress, right? So here I was in my late teens and I was going through a whole series of things that I was completely unaware of. And one of them is, are you using all the stuff you buy? The answer is no, I was not. I was not using a majority of it. I was just buying a bunch of stuff to be cool and to fill up my comfort zone. It would have been easier and a whole lot less expensive if I would have been honest with myself and I would have said, what is my comfort zone? Whoa, check it out. My comfort zone just changed. I now no longer have a house with 21 people in it. I have a house with 4 people in it, and I'm one of the 4. So we don't need all the stuff. I can live with less. And had I consciously walked through it, because I'm pretty smart, I could have walked through it and said, yeah, okay, empty space is okay. That's okay, right? No one gets hurt for empty space. I was completely unaware that that was even an option. And because that was my comfort zone, I recreated that without even knowing that I was creating a really unhealthy relationship with stuff. All right, the next thing is, do you have room for all the stuff that you have? Now, this is a frightening question. This is a really frightening question because a lot of the people that I've worked with over the years came to the realization that they did not have room for all of the stuff that they had. So what did they do? They bought bigger homes. I kid you not. They bought storage units. They bought sheds that went out behind their home. I cleaned home for a woman who bought the house next door to her as an overflow house for all of the stuff that she had in house number 1. So now she had house number 1 and house number 2, and they were side by side, and I had to clean them both. She hired me to clean them both, and yay, it was a blessing for my business once I started the house cleaning business because I needed the money and it was another house to clean, but it was literally an overflow house from the first house that she had. We've cleaned houses for a lot of people that say, oh, I've got all this stuff. We need to put this in shelves. And they put shelves up inside their house, and every single wall in their house has shelves on it. And they put the stuff in boxes. And then guess what? They've cleared away the empty space. And their comfort zone is having their space full. So what they do is they go out and they buy more stuff that now takes up the space, so they can't even get to the shelves that they put on the sides of the walls. We have people that are like, I am so organized, check me out. They rent a van or they rent a pod, these great big pods that they drop in your driveway. They move stuff into the pod and they haul the pod away, never to be seen again. Do you know how many people actually never go back inside their pod after it gets carted off their property? They go put it in a storage unit somewhere, and to get the pod down from the stack, because they stack them on top of each other, by the time they get the pod down, there's like some fee. Oh, I'm not going to pay the fee to get in there. I only need a couple of items. They go buy the items all over again, never to get inside the pod again. And the people that do get inside the pod and they bring it down, they realize, oh, that was just a lot of work. I had to call in advance. I had to call the day before. Sometimes I need things at the last minute. And it becomes not as convenient as just running to the store and buying that stuff all over again, right? So are you shopping, and is it a bargain or is it a burden? And my reality is it might be a burden without you even knowing it. I know that for me, I moved to a bigger house. I did the exact same thing that all the people I was cleaning houses for did. Oh, this house is too small for us. I'll move to a bigger house. Through the course of my life, I've moved to multiple homes. And every single time I moved to a bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger house. The house that I live in right now is about 6,000 square feet. The thing about the house is right now, everything I have has a place. And everything is in its place. Yay, I have arrived, right? No, not at all. I bought a bigger house and I found a place for all my stuff, most of which I don't use. And if it's behind a closed door, like it's in a cupboard and the cupboard door is closed, it's easy to never look in that cupboard again. It's out of sight, it's out of mind. If you're not seeing it and you're not using it, what is going to ever remind you that you have it? What is going to remind you that you ever can use it? So we did this thing on Clutter Corner several months back where we were going to go through our small kitchen appliances. And this is things like toasters and ovens and, panini makers and George Foreman grills and whatever. And if you asked me before that show, Angela, how many small kitchen appliances do you have? I would have said 6. And I would have come up with 6, being generous on it's probably 4 or 5, but maybe 6. Did you know that I had over 47 small kitchen appliances when I pulled them out from all of the cupboards because they're hiding? Okay, they're hiding in the cupboards, and I got a lot of cupboards. But I had 2 of the same exact crock pot, and I thought it was the same crock pot that I only had 1 of them, and I just thought I'd put it away in a different spot. I actually had 2. They were identical. And then I found 2 more identical crock pots of a different style. And then I had 2 more identical crock pots of yet a different style. And if you asked me about my crock pots, I knew that I had about 9 crock pots because I use about 9 of them at once. but I had 18 crock pots when I pulled them all out. And I sat there going, oh my goodness, how did I end up with all these crock pots? I knew that I had a sewing machine and a serger. But when I pulled everything out, did you know that I actually had 3 sewing machines and I have no idea where the third one came from? I've been asking all my employees, like, did anybody bring a sewing machine and drop it off at my house? Where did this third sewing machine come from? Because I knew about the 2 of them. I did not know about number 3. I did not. It's a ghost sewing machine in my house. But what's really peculiar about it, it was in the sewing machine cabinet with all of the sewing machine stuff. So I'm really, okay, where did that come from? Somebody somewhere brought it and left it, or I don't remember. So maybe somebody gave it to me and I went and I put it away or something, but I did not know I had a third sewing machine. Okay, I do not need 3. I can only use 1 at a time. But the reality is I have a lot of stuff that I don't need, I'm not using. And just because I have a place for it does not necessarily make it okay to have. Okay. In my house, it's all stored. I'm not paying for an extra storage unit for this stuff. There's a place for all of it. Okay. But the question is, do I really need it all? And the answer is no. And now that I'm downsizing again, I'll probably go to a smaller house this time. I'd like to get rid of a lot of the stuff I have, which is why we're having this conversation, as I'm becoming clear about the reasons I have my stuff. Do you have room for it all? Maybe you do. And good for you if you do. Good for me. I do. But do I need it all? Now we're changing our relationship with stuff, and we're changing our comfort zone with the stuff. Does that make sense? Sylvia says paying twice. Yes. If you buy something and you can't find it, for example, and you buy another one of them, you are paying twice. If you're storing something that you once had, you're now paying twice for that item. It's not on sale anymore. Facebook user says, a lot of times I forget what I have. That is true for me. I would forget what I had. I remember one time I pulled a bunch of stuff out of the kitchen cupboard, and lo and behold, what did I find? I found that I had four, not one, but 4 cheese graters. Who needs 4 cheese graters? I can only use 1, right? And when I was really honest with myself, I realized that I mostly bought already shredded cheese. I'm not actually shredding cheese for the most part. I'm buying already shredded cheese because it's more convenient and it takes me less time. Why on earth do I have 4 cheese shredders? And I got rid of 3 of them and I kept 1. Okay. So there are conversations that we need to have with ourselves about our relationship with stuff. And again, everybody has a relationship with stuff. It's just, is it healthy or is it unhealthy? And if you've never had the conversation with yourself, I'm going to invite you today. Here's your takeaway from today. I want to invite you to have a relationship with your stuff on purpose. I want it to be intentional. I have this stuff because I need this stuff in my life, not just because it worked its way in randomly and I have no idea what I have, right? All right, my next question for you is, can you afford the stuff that you're buying? Many people can. You know, for me, I was able to afford it for a period of time. Then I had to get a second job. Then I had to get a third job. Then I had to get a 4th job. And I was working 4 jobs and I was working on the weekends. And I was so exhausted that when I went out with my friends, this literally happened to me one time. They took me out for my birthday. We're sitting at a restaurant. I'm working 4 part-time jobs. I fell asleep at the restaurant table, and they literally pulled my hair and they put the pie underneath my head and they put my face back in it. And it was the falling into the pie that woke me up. And they said, are you even going to show up to your own birthday party? And I realized how exhausted and how burned out I was because I was trying to pay off the notices for buying things that I couldn't afford. And I realized this sucks. I don't want to live like this anymore. And now I had moved out from being a nanny, and now I was living on my own and I was trying to make ends meet. And I had no idea what that looked like because my new norm was paycheck to paycheck. So now I'm trying to provide for myself, and I got a car and I have car insurance and I have fuel for my car and I have to wear business clothes because I have a business job. And now I'm trying to, pay my own way, which means I have to pay rent. I was renting an apartment at the time. I'm trying to pay for my groceries and pay for all the stuff. And I didn't have any health insurance. I didn't have any life insurance. I didn't have any of that other stuff. And the bill collectors are calling. And I'm making promises and I'm negotiating. I learned how to negotiate. I'm negotiating things like, can I give you $15 today so that you don't cut off my power? And then when I get paid in 2 weeks, I'll give you another $15 or whatever, and I'll try to make the payments up. And I was making agreements with my landlord, like, hey, please don't cut me out. I need a place to stay. I'll pay you in 10 days. And he was giving me 10-day grace periods. And in the back of my mind, that was enabling me. I was thinking, oh, he's going to give me a 10-day grace period. I'll be 10 days late next month as well. And I'll take the money I should have paid on rent, and I'll pay these other notices that are cascading in on me, right? I'd done all of this to myself without realizing that was the new norm I had created. And when we live in a new norm without challenging that, what happens then is when something changes, we get a windfall of money. What do? We go back to our norm, which is spending everything until we slick out and then being back in the poorhouse again, right? So it's not just having a bunch of stuff, but it starts having all these effects on other areas of your life. And I knew nothing about compartmentalizing at the time. So we talk about the container concept where everything that you own fits in a bucket. How about we had a container concept with every area of our life? So we had like a financial container, and like what's in the bucket is what you spend. And if it's not in the bucket, you don't spend it. Like credit card is not in the bucket, right? That's somewhere else. That's someone else's money. You do not spend credit card money. That is not your money. I didn't know that. But what if you had like a physical wellness bucket? That was the container where if you're working 4 jobs and you're not sleeping at night and you're exhausted, you shouldn't be driving, and you should get more sleep. So what's not inside that bucket, which is your 6 hours or 8 hours or whatever it is per night, if it's not in your bucket, you don't do it, right? I was spending on every area of my life because the shopping was a bargain for me until it became this huge burden and I was completely unaware of what was happening. All right. This is tough stuff. Man, it's tough to grow up. Glenda says, Dealey, you do, but be honest with yourself and mindful about it. And the question was, who determines the need? Who determines the need for the stuff that you have is you. You get to decide. This is your life. You get to decide how much stuff that you need, how much stuff you can pay for, what your real motivations are behind it, and is it healthy for you, right? Is shopping helping or hurting you, which is my next question. I know that during the pandemic, and this is huge, this is what caught the reality for me, is during the pandemic, we got slammed. We're in the cleaning business. We do lots of house cleaning. We got slammed with people that were doing the stay at home, and they started looking at their homes, and they were spending lots and lots of money buying things online because we weren't allowed to go to the stores. And because we weren't going to the stores, what were we doing? We were shopping conveniently online. We're spending money we don't have online. We're having stuff delivered to our house. Oh, how convenient is that? And we had DoorDash coming to the house and bringing food. How convenient is that? Hey, I don't have to leave. I don't have to get sick. I got this all figured out. I can stay at my house and not come around anybody at all. People started gaining these abnormal amounts of weight because they have DoorDash dropping off food, and they have, the online stores dropping off packages at their houses. So the houses started getting cluttered, and our lives started getting cluttered, and people started going, wait, whoa. We need to stop for a second. Is the shopping helping or hurting you? And if it's becoming a burden to you, if it's a burden to your family, if you're starting to second guess your purchases, then it's time to have a real conversation. And so that's the purpose of what we're doing here today, is having that real conversation. Now, are you paying to store stuff that you don't use? That's another question I have to ask you, because if you're storing stuff that you're not using and will probably never use again, that's a whole lot of money. And it came to my attention during the pandemic, 38 billion with a B, $38 billion industry for the storage unit every year. Okay, that's how much we're spending on storage units. And if you look on every corner, like I was driving around the other day and like, whoa, where did that storage shed come from? This huge monster storage area. And then on another corner, there's another one and another one. And they're it's not every mile. It's like 2 or 3 in a mile. You'll see these great big storage areas where they have all these little tiny, they're like sizes of garages or closets or whatever that people can rent. And the average family is spending $88 per month on storage to store stuff that they're never going to use. And they might go there once or twice a year. Most people don't go every day and like go through their stuff. Most people don't. They kind of put it out of sight, out of mind. Then they forget what they have. So we're spending money we may or may not have. Maybe you have it, and that's awesome. Do you need to store it? Maybe. And there are legitimate reasons for having a storage unit. I'm not knocking the legitimate reasons, which is buying stuff from the Walmart, stuff that's on sale that I'm never going to use, and then putting it inside a storage unit and then paying to store it, that's not very wise either, right? So I had all these really weird, unhealthy relationships with stuff. And the question is, how do you know when you have enough stuff? How do you know when you have enough stuff? I'm a really big fan of books. I love my books. And it goes back to my youth. When I was young, I didn't have any stuff, but I loved books. Oh, I loved books. And we had a public library, and my mother allowed me to go to the public library every day. And I went to the library, and I was allowed to take 10 books home with me at a time. And my goal was to try to read all 10 books before I came back the next day. And there were a couple days, like on the weekend, they were closed, but I would read as many books as I could. And they would have these contests every year, and I would win every contest every year as the kid that read the most books. And I would take all my free time. I'd get up early in the morning before we worked, before we did our homeschooling. I would read. That was like my obsession. I read all the time. I was going to become as smart as I possibly could. And then I started buying books once I had the money. Check it out. I don't have to return the books at the library. I can keep them if I buy them and take them home. I know. I ended up with over 10,000 books. Talk about obsessive, okay? And most of them were really great books. I had like my own library, and they were cataloged or categorized. And I knew where all the different categories of the books were. And I used them as reference materials. And I loved my books. And then the question becomes, what are you doing with all the books? Because if you're a house cleaner, the question comes, well, you have to clean the books. You have to dust them. And they must be stored in a climate-controlled area so that the humidity doesn't get to them, or that rodents don't get to them, or that they get chewed, or that dust mites or whatever get inside and eat away at the pages. Or I don't know if dust mites eat pages, but whatever. However, books warp or fall apart or whatever. You got to protect your books. You got to protect your investment. The house that I live in right now, I'm so ashamed to say this, and I'm going to confess this to you guys, but when we built the house that I live in right now, I demanded a climate-controlled library for my books. And they took an entire bonus room and they reconnoitered it so that it's this climate-controlled area that would house all of my books. Shelf to shelf, floor to ceiling, just full of books. And I put all the books out on display in other areas of my house, bookshelf, floor to ceiling bookshelves. And then in the climate-controlled area, I had boxes of books. Okay, when am I going to read all those books now? Some of them I'd read half of, some of them I'd marked through, some of them, but it gets to the point, when are you going to read all the books? And so if we're having an honest conversation with ourselves, sometimes what was well-intended turns out to be that we create a new norm around something that's not necessarily of service to us. And where it becomes not of service is if I move to a smaller house, what happens with all the books? If I die, who takes care of all the books? Am I ever officially done with the book, and can I say goodbye to it, and can I pass it on? And it was several years ago when I realized that although I had everything in its proper place, I had a place for everything and everything was in its place, I had a really unhealthy relationship with my books. And the books represent to me great ideas. I love great ideas, right? I want to be smart. I want to learn new things. I'm a curious person. And so this to me represented like a world of information. Oh, wait a second. There's a world of information on my smartphone. There's a world of information on the computer. Do I need to limit the world of information to a climate-controlled storage closet that I'm paying to store? How quick can I get rid of these books that I'm not going to ever read again, right? And I had to have some honest conversations with myself. We've got a Facebook user here that said, we just got an Amazon return store in our city. And I've been going there with my sister each day. Everything gets cheaper. On Thursdays, it's 50 cents or fill up a garbage bag for 20. I told my sister, we just can't be going there a lot. We get getting stuff we don't need. I'm glad you brought this up. Amazon also sells pallets of stuff that people return. And it might be good stuff that they either didn't want, or it was busted, or it didn't work out, or whatever. And they're buying these pallets of returns from Amazon. So there are a lot of people that are not, I hate to say this, they're not buying items from Amazon. They're buying entire pallets from Amazon. And it's becoming this proliferation of stuff, because now they're, again, paying the storage units to store stuff that was rejected from buyers that each tested out the items for whatever reason. Like I said, a lot of it's good. And they're saying, well, we'll sell the stuff, which it becomes overwhelming in a minute, and many of them don't have the time to actually write the ads and sell the stuff. If the stuff could be written ads for and sold, oh wait, that's what Amazon already does, right? They can already find it on Amazon. Plus, you got to pay for the shipping and all that other stuff. So it can be a burden if you're not careful. The next thing that I want to ask as we close here today, excuse me, is your identity based on the things that you own? And this was really an important reality for me, because as I looked at the things that I owned, there was a phase of my life, and it started back in the nanny days, where I was buying things because my identity was associated with that. When I moved away from home, I was just a kid. I didn't really have any sort of identity at all. I didn't know who I was, and I didn't know what my life was supposed to look like, right? So if we stripped away all the stuff from my lifestyle, who was I without my stuff? And the reality was I hadn't articulated that. I didn't know. I'm just a nanny without my stuff. I'm a nobody. I don't have any college degree yet. I haven't done anything in my life that amounts to anything. I just moved away from a great big family. And so without my family, I wasn't part of my family. I was just like this lonesome person now out in the great big world. Give me some stuff so that I can create an identity, right? There are business people and they dress in business clothes. Therefore, that's their identity. There are people that have really nice cars. Well, they must be rich. That's their identity. And I didn't have any identity. And so here I was kind of like, looking around like, I'm going to reinvent myself here. Who am I? Who am I without my stuff? It's a great question. If we strip away everything that you have, who are you? And it's the question I'm asking myself right now, because I have 2 sets of elder parents. And as they're about ready to leave the earth, I've got one relative that's in their deathbed right now. And to have conversations with him and to find out, how are you doing? He's looking back on the quality of his life, and his stuff has never come up. We're not talking about his stuff. The stuff that he amassed during his life, not important. What we're looking at is, who was he as a person? What is the legacy he's leaving behind? Who are the people whose lives he's touched? And what was the purpose of his life? When you stop and you say, well, I had 4 cheese graters, that's who I was. That's not how people remember you, right? That's not who you are. Your stuff does not equal who you are. Whether you lived in a really big fancy house, or whether you lived in a modest home, whether you lived in an apartment, that's not how people remember you. That's not the value that you have as a person. The value you have as a person goes far beyond the stuff that you own. And if we're really honest about the life that we live, it will help us determine, what exactly we're doing. And when I look at the stuff that, and it was a true moment for me, when I look at the lifestyle that I had amassed, and I was really honest with myself, I was a house cleaner. This is an honest closet for me. This is what my closet looks like. Why? Because that's who I am on an honest to goodness basis. If I strip away all the fancy stuff, all the stuff I'm not using, all the stuff that I'm ashamed to wear home when I go to see my family, because it's embarrassing that I have really nice lavish stuff, and it just kind of shines in their face. It's like, hey, look at me, look at what I have. It's embarrassing, And so who am I really? How do I spend the majority of my time? And when it became crystal clear to me that I'm a house cleaner, okay, these are my hands. I don't have fancy jewels and diamonds and whatever on my hands. I wear gloves most of the day. If I'm wearing latex gloves, I don't need fancy jeweled rings. If I had them, I'd have to take them off. I don't wear lots of fancy jewels on my ears and in my hair and all that stuff. That's not who I am. My hair's in a bun, and it's just modest during the day. It's a very modest approach to my lifestyle. So my question as I leave you today is the bargains that you're saving up for, can you afford them? Do you have a place for them? Is it really a bargain, and does it make your life better? Or is it silently becoming a burden because you're drifting aimlessly through the shopping process and you're not actually paying attention to the new normal that you've created? And I hate having this question, because a lot of us have never actually had conversations. We're like, oh, I've got too much stuff, I should get rid of it. Without realizing that we ourselves did this to ourselves. We created a new normal, and then we're trying to maintain the normal. And anything from that, when we clear out everything and it all comes back, that's our new normal. That's our normal. That is our comfort zone. And without changing the comfort zone, everything goes back to the way it was. Everything went back to the way it was for me living alone as it was when I lived in a house with 21 people. I didn't realize that's exactly what I was doing. And so now that I'm consciously aware, I can consciously say, hey, it's not healthy for me to go inside stores right now. And so I've outsourced all of my shopping, and I do not go inside a store if I can help it. And if somebody drives me to a store and I'm a passenger in the car, I say, thank you, I'm going to sit in the car and I'm going to return emails while you're inside the store. Here's my shopping list. Here's what I need. I'll pay you to go inside and get what I need. I'm going to sit here in the car and return my emails because I know I'm going to spend a whole lot less money. I'm not going to have the impulse shopping. I'm not going to buy things that I don't need, want, use, or will have to store again. And it's going to help me stay with the new norm that I have, which is learning to live with less. And so that's where I'm coming from, and that's my process. I hope that sharing this with you today has just sparked a conversation, and that as we move forward, I'm not judging anybody. I want everybody to have nice stuff, and I still have nice stuff. I live in a really nice house. I have nice vehicles. I have nice clothes, but I'm now consciously living within my means, and I'm consciously living and buying things on purpose and with intent. And so as stuff comes into my life, I'm looking at it and saying, oh, you know what? I know right now by looking at that, that's not part of my life. I will never use that. And then letting it go immediately and being able to regift that immediately so that I'm not storing it for 5 years and then it goes out of style or out of date and then I get rid of it. I'm getting rid of it right now, right? I'm creating a new normal way of living with less and then changing my relationship with that stuff. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. This was awesome. Patty says, thanks for sharing a different and healthier perspective. Have a great week. Sarah, hello. Sarah says, super helpful. Thank you. Glenda says, thank you, Angela. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I've just really enjoyed our time here together. And I've got some more fun ideas that we're going to share with you next week. And someone says, this was very interesting. Thanks. I will follow your channels. Thanks, you guys, so much. This was awesome. Have a great week. Same time, same place next week. And I'm going to leave links in the replay below to the new normal tapes that we've created that you can listen to as you go to sleep at night. It's helped me reprogram my relationship with stuff, and it might help you as well. Absolutely free. You just turn it on low and play it while you sleep at night. So I'll leave links in that after the show is over. Thanks again, and God bless.